Yeah.
So today is going to be our last session. It's
Mhm.
got to do with the purchaser side of the transaction. So, um, right, we in our last session, if you remember, we talked about what does a seller solicitor do primarily? Respond to inquiries that were raised by the buyer solicitors. Now, let's come on to the buyer solicitor side.
Mhm.
So they do the same things as a seller solicitor in terms of onboarding a client. After that, the transaction transitions into something very different as compared to a seller solicitor side transaction. Now, what they need to do is they need to satisfy their client, and if it's a purchase with a mortgage or with some sort of lending, they need to satisfy the requirements of the lender as well. Now, so you've received the contract pack,
Mhm.
you have received the confirmed instructions of the seller solicitors. So, the first thing that you need to do is do an SRA check of the seller solicitors. Are they an SRA regulated law firm? Are they a CLC regulated law firm? If they are if they are regulated by both of these, or one of these, sorry,
Mhm.
then you'd be able to move with the transaction. If they're not, then you need to raise it with your designated person at your law firm. Because it might be that this law firm is not regulated. Now, so once you've carried out that check and you have received the protocol documents such as the TA6, the TA10, the TA13 as well, and also you've received the contract, the draft contract, the other supplemental documents as well, such as the building regulations or such as the EPC or such as other documents that are within the possession of the seller, original documents. So how I do it is very different. How every conveyancer does it, they have their own styles. So the way I look at the documents is first I read through the property information form, see what is there to raise. Now, usually in a property information form, what you're looking for is boundary structures. You're looking for disputes with boundaries. You're looking for shared access. You're looking for building regulations and planning permissions for any building done on the property or within the property, or any restructuring done within the property that would require a planning permission. Any other things that come up, such as solar panels as well. So you're looking at all of these things. And once you read through that document to the end, you're raising inquiries along the way.
Mhm.
Then I'd look for, so usually some conveyancers or some solicitors won't even look at the fittings and contents form. It's because it's got nothing to do with us. But the reason why it should be looked at is because if something is included as a fitting within the property, or it's a fixture within the property, is there a price to it? So imagine if a person is leaving a fridge or a deep freezer, and or they're leaving a bed, or they're leaving some cushions or something that has a monetary value. They might just come back to say, oh, we would charge for this. Does your client accept? And what you need to do is you need to ask for a list of items included within that sale of theirs. It's also known as an inventory. Now, the inventory is basically a list of items that's going to be left within the property, but it has a value attached to it. These are known as chattels as well. So if you look into the contract, the draft contract that we had a look at in our previous sessions, there's a small mention of chattels as well, or monies payable for chattels. So this does not form part of that purchase, but it's additional form of that purchase price within the contract. Now, once you've had a look at the fittings and contents form as well, if there is a lease, you look at the leasehold information form. Now, the leasehold information form will have details regarding the lease. I think we spoke about this in our previous sessions, that it would have the details of the freeholder or the management company or the landlord. It would have details of the managing agent. It would have other details such as ground rent and service charge, and so on and so forth. With the leasehold information form, you would also receive a management pack, which is known as a an LPE1 pack. An LPE1 pack stands for Leasehold Property Enquiries Form. So these are leasehold inquiries that the landlord or a managing agent or a management company answers. Now, and then if there's a freehold management company, so there would be an FME1 pack, such as which is Freehold Management Inquiries Pack, which would have all the details of have the service charge been paid, is there a deed of covenants required, is there anything that's required, and what is outstanding and what is in arrears. Yeah. And all of these form part of the leasehold information form. And these documents are very necessary. Apart from that, then you'd have to look at the title register and the title plan. Once you look into them as well, you would have to see restrictions. You'd have to see that the name of the proprietor, does that match with the seller on the contract? Sometimes the client, the seller site solicitors, or sorry, the seller would have changed their names or have married someone and they would have inherited their name, their last name or their surname. And you'd need to ask for a conveyance's certificate certifying that this is the same person as mentioned in the proprietorship register. You'll also need to see that if there is a financial charge on the title register, which would need to be discharged, and the undertaking of which would have to be given in the TA13 form. So all of that you need to raise, but you cannot raise anything that is out of the scope of the conveyancing protocol. So you cannot raise, oh, can you let us know the condition of the light bulbs? Oh, can you let us know the condition of the carpets? Can you let us know the condition of the beds? You can't. They would not respond, or they would just come back and be a bit pedantic about it and say, "Why are you raising this?" And it just opens a dialogue, and it just goes to and fro, which you don't want to do. So what usually I do is, once the contract pack is in, you have different search providers. You go to them, you submit the title plan from the seller's pack, and you order searches. Searches take around about 3 to 4 weeks to come in. Some people, some conveyancers raise inquiries at that time and do their due diligence on the file. I do my due diligence, but I wait for the searches to come in to raise inquiries so that there is no to and fro.
Mhm.
So once I have reviewed all of the documents, such as the search pack, such as the seller's pack, I raise inquiries, and meaningful inquiries. Those are in. So now so you've had this to and fro, they've responded back, you've had responses. Now you think, as a solicitor or as a conveyancer, you think that these responses are sufficient, no need to inquire for anything further. Whilst you're doing that, you should have sent the title plan, the title register, and all of the searches to the client to have a look at. This is not the moment of you reporting to the client. You're just showing them this and saying, "Oh, can you please confirm that the property that you've inspected is as depicted as within the title plan?" So they would just do that, and that's fine. Now it's time for you to report to your client. Now, once you've had every response and everything, there are 3 documents, very important documents. Some conveyancing law firms do it and some don't, but it's just good practice. Number 1 is a title investigation sheet or a title investigation document, which would help you understand step by step what do you need to look for. So you've got different templates of different law firms, and usually it would have the same things that we just discussed, such as the property information form, fittings and contents form, um, title documents, uh, and things that you've inspected in them. You just write your professional opinion, because this thing does not go to the client. It is just saved on file. And then you've got the searches as well. And then you've got the mortgage, the conditions of the mortgage. So you need to, as a conveyancer, also advise your client on the mortgage as well and on the conditions of the mortgage. So you need to go through the mortgage document, the offer, the mortgage offer, and you need to see that are there any conditions that are not standard conditions of a mortgage. Even if they are standard, you'd need to advise your client and you'd need to put that on the title investigation. According to the CQS, the Conveyancing Quality Scheme, which you do undertake as your continued professional development courses, as a solicitor, as a conveyancer, or as a qualified fee earner, it is very much highlighted within the practice that it's not enough to tell your client that, please read the lease, please read this, please read that. It's not enough. You need to advise them of anything that's adverse to their interests, anything that is of their interest, anything that would make them liable for payment or for a duty that they need to do, or an obligation that they have towards that property, or a person that's managing that property, or towards the lender as well. So you just do all of that. So you've got the title investigation document, you've got the report on title, and then you've got a full file checklist that you need to do as well. So the report on title, and so also on the buyer side, you need to do the transfer as well. So can you just take out a transfer TR1 document from the gov.uk's website?
Oh, what? Sorry,
TR1.
TR.
Tango Romeo 1. So we're discussing a standard purchase. Usually there are other documents as well. There's a TP1. There's other documents as well, but we're just discussing a standard purchase because that's, I mean, that would give you a better understanding of how a transfer works. So if you take out that document,
Trying to share it. Sorry.
yeah.
It's not letting me share it, I'm afraid.
Can you not share your screen?
I'm trying. I've clicked it, but it's just not doing anything. And I click it.
Right, let me see if I can do something. Share screen.
Oh, is it working now?
No, can't see anything. Oh,
No.
yeah, it is now. Yeah, wait, yeah, it's fine. You know, it's working. There we go. So that is a transfer document
Yeah.
that, as a buyer solicitor, you need to fill out and send it to the seller solicitors to review and approve. Yep. So if you can you just zoom in a bit. Yep. Fill in the screen.
Do you want to zoom in more? Or sorry.
Yeah, a bit more. That's fine. Yeah, perfect. That's fine. No worries. That's fine. So now let's go through this document. Title number of the property. So the title number of the property would be the title number as mentioned within the title register. So do you remember us seeing a title register?
Yeah.
Yep. So if you look, the title number is just right on the first page. Title number is just there. You write that down. So if you've got two titles, you just write down two titles. So best thing is to just okay. Let's just fill this in. Yeah, is this an editable document?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So just space. Sorry, enter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. And then just type in WYK, full capital.
Sorry.
That's fine. WYK 1234. Yep, and on top of it, type another one, say WYK 678 or something. Yep, 9 as well. Yep, so you've got that. And then you've got property known as some property, just type in any property. 1 acre, 1 acre, Huddersfield, 1 Huddersfield. Yeah, just type in anything. Just type in any. Yeah, and type in the city. No, don't. No, in the same line. In the same line. London, and then the postcode. Just LE1 or something. In the full postcode, you just type that in capital letters. This date. So what does it say? Remember to date this deed with the date of completion, but not before it has been signed and witnessed. So this is effectively the date of completion, not the date of exchange.
Okay.
So the date of exchange is different. If you remember in our previous session when we were going through the contract, the date of exchange is once you go through the contract with the other side solicitor, after you have your requisite authority from your client, after you've reported to them and you have signed documents. Now, this is the date of completion. This is when effectively the transaction has completed. You've transferred funds. You've transferred funds to the seller solicitors. You have funds from the lender, and you've transferred those as well as a lump sum fund from your client and from the lender to the seller solicitors. And they have confirmed completion and they've released the keys. So this is that date. Now, give full names of, so the transferor, give full names of all the person transferring this property. Now, this would be Mr. So you would not add in Mr. or Mrs. You just put in their full names, including the middle names.
Okay.
Usually, when a client would come to you, if my name is Mohammed Usman Zahir, yeah. So if I say my name is Usman Zahir, that's not my full name according to my ID documents. And that would cause an issue that would cause a requisition to be raised by the land registry. A requisition is like a problematic thing, a question or a query or an inquiry, or I can't find the synonym for it, but it's just that they would come back to you with saying that please resolve this issue. Now, if my client's name is Ian Christopher Patrick, yeah, and he gives in the initial instruction, he says Ian Patrick is my name. He's left out Christopher. This is going to cause a requisition to be raised. So always remember to have the transferor's name correct. So this transferor is basically the seller. So that is why you send this document to the seller side solicitor as well, for them to check every detail that is relevant to them, such as the full name of the seller. Then, obviously, for UK incorporated companies, registered number of company or liability partnership, including any prefixes. And you just put in the company number. If there is an overseas element, territory of incorporation, or these kind of things. So this is just for you to read through and fill in as you go. So it's just very straightforward. You need to, it's kind of a filling in exercise. So in capital letters, if you can type in transferor's name, anything, capital letters, Ian Christopher Patrick. Make sure that the spelling's correct according to the contract, or just send it to them and say, can you please review and approve? And they will let you know, saying that, please, can you correct our client's name as so and so? Yep. And then you've got, go down onto the second page. There we go. So the transferee for entry in the register. This is for you to fill out as this is your client. So you would usually put in your client's full name, including any middle names as well. Same thing. And then you've got at number 6, transferees' intended addresses for service for entry in the register. Now, this would either be the property that they're purchasing, or this would be the property of their registered office address, or something else. But usually it's the property that's being purchased. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you've got the transferor transfers a property to the transferee. Now, the consideration part. The transferor has received from the transferee for the property the following sum. The transfer is not for money or anything that has a monetary value. Insert other receipt as appropriate. Now, usually in a purchase transaction, the first one is more likely to be applicable, until and unless it's a transfer of equity. Now, a transfer of equity is someone is on the register, two people are on the register, one needs to come out of it. So the other person, what they do is they would do a simple transfer without a contract being involved, and they would just you would take the transfer as not for money or anything that has a monetary value, which would just say that a father is gifting to his son who's on the register as well, or something else, but you need to be on that register. Now, the transferor transfers with either is it full title guarantee or is it limited title guarantee. Now, full title guarantee is when you can guarantee the title or you can guarantee everything of the title, as such as if you're the seller yourself, you know about that property, you've lived at that property, it's your property. But if you've not lived at that property, or if it's not you as or if you're acting as an executor of that property or a trustee of that property, and you're just selling it because of a trust or a probate, then you're just selling with limited title guarantee because you do not know about that title, and thus you cannot guarantee its full extent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on to the next page. Now, if there are two buyers and your clients are two, then you need to ask them this question. So, where the transferee is more than one person, place X in the appropriate box. Declaration of trust. The transferee is more than one person and they are to hold the property on trust for themselves as joint tenants, or they are to hold the property on trust for themselves as tenants in common in equal shares, or they are to hold the property on trust. Now, these are all property law, your module things that you need to be aware of. So let me ask you, what is a joint tenant?
So a joint tenant is when they share the equitable interest of the property equally. So if one of them dies, the shares of the property goes all automatically to the other person named on the property.
Definitely perfect. And what is a tenancy in common or a tenant in common in equal shares?
So this is when the equitable interest is split 50-50, but sometimes they can also declare if they want to have different shares. And then if one of them dies, it won't automatically go to the next. So if they have a will, then they can leave their share to who's named on the will.
Brilliant. And then holding a property on trust, you'd have to have a trust deed and you'd have to have trustees of that property then. And so on and so forth. Usually where there's couples, I've seen a lot of couples do this, that they do the first one, but there are some couples who do the second one as well. Or there is a brother and sister who do the second one, or there is a friend and another friend who do a second one as well. It just depends. You need to send them a declaration of trust form, which basically, in simple words, explains to them what these three things are and which one would they want to choose. And then they select it, sign it, and send it back to you. From there onwards, you know that the property is to be held as either joint tenants, tenants in common, or on a trust. Further down, and you've got then insert here any required or permitted statement, certificate, or application, or any grant agreed covenants, declarations, and so on. So this would have to do with the deed of covenants. This would have to do with the lease if there's a covenant that needs to be placed there. This would have to do with any document that has covenants within them, and they need to be inserted within the title register upon first registration. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that it can show within the title register that these covenants still exist. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Further down, and then we have the execution clause. Now, this is where the seller and the buyer sign. They sign on their own copies. So what it says is the transferor must execute this transfer as a deed using the space opposite. If there is more than one transferor, all must execute. Forms of execution are given in Schedule 9 of the Land Registration Rules 2003, sorry. That if the transfer contains transferee's covenants or declarations or contains an application by the transferee, such as for a restriction, it must also be executed by the transferee. Now, so what you do is transferred as a deed, executed as a deed by name of the client, name of the seller, in the presence of name, date, and address. Signature, name, and address of the witness. Now, this would be the same for the buyer as well. This would be the same for the seller as well. So the first bit would be for the seller to sign. The second one would be for the buyer to sign. Now, the witnessing criteria is that the witness should not be related to yourself. Any document that you sign, that your client signs, you need to make sure that they are being signed by a person who is not incapacitated as per the Mental Capacity Act, is not a person that cannot be a witness, is not a natural person, such as AI, artificial intelligence. You can't ask your Siri or you can't ask, hey Google, to witness something for you. It should be a real person until such time comes when AI takes over. And then we are not really going to be enjoying that. Apart from that, you've got a minor. They cannot witness a document. Apart from that, you've got blood relatives. They cannot witness a document that where you've signed. So this is the transfer that you need to send to your client to sign. Yep.
Yeah.
After that, if there's lending involved, if there's mortgage involved, you would need to send the mortgage deed, which would also be registered at the land registry post completion. Now, so you've got documents such as, now let's make a list of it. You've got documents, the SDLT that needs to be signed, the SDLT declaration that needs to be signed.
Mm-hmm.
You need to calculate the SDLT for your client on the HMRC portal. So you do all of that calculation, you put in all of the details of the property, of your client, of the seller, and of the monies that are involved. as the purchase price. Whether your client's a first-time buyer, whether your client's, what's going on, everything, you just fill that in. And at the end, the HMRC website gives you a calculation, which would be payable upon after completion. So you would need to submit that payment onto the HMRC website once you're doing the SDLT submission. Once that's done, well, so the SDLT declaration that needs to be signed, sorry, and then you've got the transfer that needs to be signed by your client, the contract that needs to be signed by your client, the mortgage deed that needs to be signed by your client. And then you've got, if there's a deed of covenants, that needs to be signed by your client. And if there is also the report as well. So before your client has read the report, you should never advise them to sign any document, because the report would contain every single detail regarding the property. It might just be the case that, oh, we have read everything and we do not want to go ahead with this property. So them signing the transfer would mean nothing because you cannot complete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you cannot exchange. And all of that needs to be done before exchange and completion. So you cannot have your client signing documents on the day of exchange. This should be well before the date of exchange. It
Mm-hmm.
should be round about 2 weeks, I'd say, before exchange, so that you have all responses to inquiries, you've got all the searches, you've got every document from the lender that the client needs to sign, and you've basically got everything that you need to report to your client to
Yeah.
let them know what this property and the title that comes with this property entails, and what are the liabilities of the property of the client when they purchase the property. So once they have read everything, as I said, the report needs to be very explanatory and very much in depth. It's not sufficient for you to just highlight the sections of a lease, a transfer, or any deed, or any conveyance to your client, saying that, can you please read it yourself? And if you have any questions, just let us know. You need to be very thorough, because this again is a very high risk industry.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've reported to your client's satisfied, they sign that report saying, given a statement under which they sign that I have read the report along with the supplemental documents, such as the searches and everything, any enclosures that are there, and I give authority to my solicitors, uh, name of the solicitors, like the company a name, to exchange and complete on my behalf
Yeah.
on the day of exchange and completion. But even if they've signed that, they can still change their mind. So on the day of exchange and completion, you need to email them, explaining to them what exchange means, what completion means, as we discussed in our previous session for the seller. What does exchange mean? What does completion mean? And you ask them to give you authority. And you also call them to say, have you received my email? And they say yes. And then you say, please read it through again. And you read the email to them
Mm-hmm.
and you say, can I have your authority to exchange and complete today? And they would give you authority effectively to exchange and complete on the days of exchange and completion.
Yeah.
So once you've exchanged and completed, this would then be a post completion matter. The keys would be released by the seller solicitor, and you just ask your client to collect the keys from
Yeah.
any place that's been said in the TA13 form. Once that's done, then it comes to post-completion. Now, this is where you need to do a bit of an admin work. Now, post-completion is where you register the property, register the interest of the lender as well within that property as a charge, and also register your client's interest in that property as the main proprietor.
Mm-hmm.
You'd also need to register any deeds that needs registering, such as a deed of covenants or a restriction or anything else.
Yeah.
You'd also need to submit the stamp duty land tax. The stamp duty land tax at this moment is 14 days from completion. It's got a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
After that, your client would incur penalties. And it's usually you as a law firm that pays for those penalties because it's not the client's fault.
Yeah.
Until and unless they've not made payment on account, a full payment. Usually, when you send a completion statement before completion, before any exchange and anything has happened, asking for the funds, the outstanding funds of the purchase price from the client, you would include all of these things. So it would include the purchase price, and in addition, it would include SDLT, your legal fee, disbursements, registration, ID and AML, and all of these kind of things. And if
Mm-hmm.
you've dealt with any third parties, also that, and all of these things. And you should not be completing before you have all the funds in account.
Yeah.
So that is your purchaser's side of the transaction. It's completed. After completion, you do registration, submission of the SDLT. Even if the SDLT is 0, you still need to submit that form.
Mm-hmm.
At the HMRC, you still need to submit that. And that's the purchase side of the transaction that's done. So, any questions?
Not so far, no.
So, yes, I think my training's complete here. It was lovely teaching you and being your instructor for a short period. Hopefully, you've benefited from this.
Greatly, yes.
But you still have the recording, so you can just go to them and see for yourself that what do you need to do and how you need to do it. Again, this is just a non-complex
Mm-hmm.
structure that I've created for any of my students for them to understand how does conveyancing work, so that they're not asking questions. I mean, very, very basic questions from their employer.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anything of that sort. So I was asking questions and question and question, and I do understand that it does become a bit annoying for
Mm.
the employer because they have the work to do as well.
Yeah, that's very true.
But it's it shouldn't be the case where you're not asking questions if there is anything to ask a question about. All right, that you need to have a foundational knowledge of the work that you're doing, but we're all learning at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Even I've seen conveyancers having 10, 15 years of experience. They, on a point of law, they're like, oh, I need to have a second opinion about this from a senior conveyancer or from a conveyancer who might be very junior in terms of PQE, but he's worked in that transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So just make sure that you have that foundational knowledge, but where you need to ask a question, don't just sit on it. Ask the question.
That's the question, yeah.
No one's going to do anything.
Yeah.
If you've got a I mean, if the employer isn't invested in you, they would just not respond, or they just say, "Oh, I mean, you should have known this, or you should have known this, this, and that." But majority of the employers, they would help you because they need to run a business as well. And you sitting on a question does not help their business.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, perfect. Any questions, you have my number. Just let me know.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I've learned a lot actually. It's really great to see how what I've learned from my module kind of reflect more from a practical side as well.
Mhm.
So it's great to see like the terms crossing over, but also learning new things as well.
Yeah, I've also put in these videos on YouTube,
Yeah.
so it's for any one of your colleagues they want to just have a look, they can.
Hmm.
Also, I mean, they shouldn't be expecting us wearing suits and everything because we don't. I mean, it's just going to be very plain and simple. But if you want to come here to learn, you'd learn.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's it. If you want to, yeah, perfect. That's fine. It was nice doing these sessions with you,
It was nice
and
meeting you as well.
yeah, I hope to come across any transactions with yourself in the future as a conveyance.
Hopefully. All
Right,
right.
Erica.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Let me stop the recording.